Great stuff. First of all, just before we get into any greater detail, can you just tell me a little bit about Dr. Cutler, what the research exactly found? Because 9 out of 10 nationally is a lot of babies dummies. I find.
Yeah, I mean, basically what we did is we did 2 little surveys, and one of them was what happens if you drop your dummy on a surface, and how badly can it get contaminated. And we found around about 10% of them picked up high levels of contamination. We were only interested, we do a lot of environmental screening, and as you probably appreciate, there are a lot of bacteria in the environment, and most of them won't do you any harm at all. So what we tend to concentrate on, what we call is heavily loaded specimens. Now, that means there's gross contamination on the sample. And we found about 9% of them, if you dropped them in the environment, you pick up about 9% were really heavily contaminated. Now, that was with environmental type organisms. However, we then looked at used dummies, and what we found out, surprisingly, is something like 16% were actually heavily contaminated or grossly contaminated. And the main bug involved seemed to be a nice little organism called the Enterococcus, and one of its full names is Enterococcus faecalis, so you can imagine where it normally lives. And that was a cause of concern.
When we talk about these sorts of bacteria, what kind of risk do they pose?
Well, Enterococcus faecalis, and any Enterococcus can easily cause a urinary tract infection. Depending on how fit the baby is, it can cause more severe problems. One of the issues that we did find is, for example, we looked at the age or how long the dummies had been used. And some of the dummies, one of the worst contaminated dummies, had been used for almost a year. And so we came to the conclusion in the end, if you're going to use a dummy, please only use it for about 6 months and then try and change it, because it does seem that the surface integrity of the dummy will change, and that seems to allow bacteria to grow on them slightly better.
And in terms of the research, when we break it down regionally, can you just tell us a little bit about how many people are potentially at risk in our region?
Can I pass you across to Milton, because she's got the sheet?
Hello, yeah, we've broken down it into regions, and to give you an idea, in the North East in total there are 33,700 babies born per year. So what that really means is for those babies using a soother, up to a fifth of those could be using a soother that's really heavily contaminated and could make their baby really unwell. As a mum myself, as well as being a sterilising expert, I understand that having a poorly baby, is really difficult. You've got poorly babies, illness being spread around the family, and sleepless nights. And we're here today to tell your listeners the importance of sterilising and keeping their baby soother clean.
And obviously I asked before about the risk it poses to the baby and bacteria, but obviously is going to have a knock-on effect as well if that's coming into the home, isn't it? So if you've got other family members exposed to it as well, it really can have a knock-on effect.
Well, I mean, these organisms are not so effective. Well, yes, they can cause disease in adults, of course they can. But I think exactly what my colleague said, it's the impact on the family if you've got a sick baby. It really isn't very pleasant. We've all been through it. Screaming nights affects your work, affects everything else. So you're better trying to avoid that. And for the baby, yes, babies have to be in touch with the environmental bacteria, but they don't have to eat it.
In terms of looking to sterilisation and things like that, how do we go about doing that?
Okay, well, we advise here at Milton to sterilise your baby soother up to 1 year of age, because the baby's immunity is particularly low under 12 months, and it's at its lowest at 6 months old. We recommend using a portable device to keep baby soother sterile on the go. We do have a Milton mini soother steriliser available, but it's just about keeping it clean and making mums aware that when it's dropped, use a sterile one that you've already got with you in your sterilising pod, and not using the one off the floor. Then you can give the baby a nice fresh clean soother with the peace of mind that you're not giving your baby these harmful germs. Then you can use the dirty one, put it back into a steriliser, and then you're good to go. And as many times as baby throws that out within the day, you know that you're always going to have a clean soother handy. And mums don't need to worry. It's really, really simple and effective and quick and easy to keep your soother sterile.
Great stuff. And then do we have any other notes from the research or any other advice for our listeners, please?
I think, as I said, the major advice that we would give is try not to use a dummy for more than 3 or 6 months, because if you can imagine, the normal rubber surface of a dummy would be pretty solid. If it's a new one, after a kid's been chewing it for all that time, it's opening big canyons and crevices where bacteria can hide.
And just making sure that parents are aware of these germs, and just aware that when the baby throws their soother out, you don't know where it's been or what's on the floor. Just always use a sterile one, and always make sure you've got a soother steriliser with you all the time, so that you can just always have that peace of mind.
Great stuff, guys. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Okay.
Very much appreciated.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Okay,
Cheers.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.